evening and informative one. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dia. A very good evening to all of you. It is a great privilege for me to speak on a subject so sensitive yet so pertinent for all of us. At the outset, I would like to offer my thanks to Team Anajari for giving me this platform to speak on gender and sexuality. And I chose to speak on the queer narratives from Assam. For this talk, I have chosen randomly very few narratives from a large body of narratives for two reasons. One is the time constraint, and then it is a huge area where, and it's ever evolving, ever emerging, where one can go on and on. So I'll be basically talking on a few fictional narratives, a few poetic narratives, and then some of the personal narratives of people from the queer community who have come out. Now coming back to my topic, queer, I have used it as an umbrella term. It is an umbrella term that includes people who are non-binary, non-heterosexual, and whom we call LGBTQIA+, and it goes on, all the alternative sexualities. So all these sexualities have been, have come under this queer term, queer. So I'll be using this term queer in my talk. And I'm not going to talk about, deliberately at this point, I won't be talking about the queers, about their activism and other dimensions, as I'm going to mainly focus on the queer narratives. But when we talk about the queer or the non-binary, we need to begin a little bit about the binary. So, the institutionalized patriarchal hierarchy has produced a kind of gendered identity within the binary structure. However, with the proliferation of the discourses on gender, sexuality, and identity, there has emerged new ways of looking at gender beyond these heteronormative binaries. So here I would like to bring in Judith Butler, who is an American philosopher and gender theorist. Butler's notion of gender as performative, the stylized repetition of acts that must be performed to achieve the gendered identity, is crucial in this discourse on the queer people whose identity does not conform to the heterosexual norms. Through her notion of gender performativity, Butler dismantles the ontological status of the heteronormative gendered regime. Butler posits that the hegemonic heterosexual structure of disciplinary power produces queerness as abnormal, and she strongly upholds the possibility of queer subversion. So when we talk about this abnormality or normal, for that matter, so, when we talk about normal or natural, that is very often, people very often in all kinds of discourses, they say that this is abnormal, or it is unnatural. But then what is normal or what is natural, and who decides what is normal or natural? So these kinds of ideas need to be addressed when we talk of the queer people. And here to understand the lived realities of these people. The naturalness of the dominant heteronormative discourses could be challenged by queer narratives by making spaces for the newer understanding of gender and sexuality. Queer discourses try to question the dominant narrative codes by disrupting the societal status quo and thereby foreground a phenomenological agenda to project the political dimensions of liminality. The notion of liminal as a place of transition, liminal is the in-between space. The notion of liminality as a place of transition and located outside the binary structure has provided the queers a space to redefine their identity. The liminal space allows them to deconstruct the unwavering notion of the society by creating a new consciousness that is not bound by the dominant power structure. It can be a locus of power and freedom. This liminal space and other alternative spaces that the queers inhabit are intense and disruptive and have the ability to deconstruct the accepted heteronormative structure and helps the queers create their own identity that is free and is an instant of pure potentiality. They are also sites of resistance and frustration. Coming back to this Assamese literature, the heterosexual ideology dominates the hegemonic knowledge production space. The non-heteronormative people occupy the spaces in periphery, in the margin, in crevices, and cannot claim a distinct positionality. Queer people have been denied representation and kept out of all kinds of documented space in history and in literature as well, till the other day. In most of the mainstream literature and other spaces like films or theaters or other creative spaces, the queers are deliberately made the butt of joke, they are made fun of, ridiculed, and so on. And thus, these images of the queer dominate the mindset of the people of this heterosexual society. However, literature is nuanced and confronts the complex intangibilities of queerness as dynamic and something that is aesthetic and beautiful. Thus, queer narratives can bring these intangibilities into the social fabric and spread awareness for a positive change. So queer narratives from Assam are a timely intervention in this regard. They portray the lived realities of the queer people. These narratives reflect a new direction in the process of an all-inclusive society. Thus, a proper study of these narratives is highly warranted. The queer narratives and prevalent dominant social cultural practices of a society. The queer space is any space. When we talk about the space, the queer, and just a little while ago I said about the spaces. So what is that space? Alternative spaces can be any space that enables its occupants to perform queerness, and something that is aesthetic and beautiful. Thus, queer narratives can bring these intangibilities into the social fabric and spread awareness for a positive change. So queer narratives from Assam are a timely intervention in this regard. They portray the lived realities of the queer people. These narratives reflect a new direction in the process of an all-inclusive society. Thus, a proper study of these narratives is highly warranted. The queer narratives and prevalent dominant social cultural practices of a society. The queer space is any space. When we talk about the space, the queer, and just a little while ago I said about the spaces. So what is that space? Alternative spaces can be any space that enables its occupants to perform queerness. Instead of inverting hierarchies and enacting reversal of the normative order, these places attempt to negotiate and perform alternatives. These narratives present how some kind of queer space and identity emerge as a site of contestation and resistance with an underlying consciousness of conflicts. The texts under study today are the fictional narratives by Moushumi Kondo. They have taken Meghna Chaudhary and Aruni Kashyap and Panchanan Hazarika, and poetic narrative by Mayuri Deka, Bornalina Dwara, and Ritu Porna, and a few personal narratives by members of the queer community who have come out. And I would like to begin this study by talking about the lived experiences of the people from the queer community by referring to some of their personal narratives. I will begin by reading the foreword of Mayuri Deka, who has published this book called Queerscape. This book is called Queerscape in association with Anything Guwahati. Actually, this book, Mayuri, she had organized a 2-day workshop for the people of LGBTQ community, where people from different states of Northeast India participated and narrated their lived experiences. And this book is the outcome of that workshop. So here she mentions the very base, foundation of this workshop and why they had to go for this kind of a workshop. It is a fact that people from, I'll just read from here a little bit. It is a fact that people from the LGBTQIA+ community are there in our lives every day, everywhere. But still, where we live in the northeastern part of India, the visibility of queer people is very less. Every day we come across people from the queer community through messages, social media calls, and get to deal with them, talk to them, know their lived experiences, struggles, and stories. The most common thing from all these stories about different people from different places is the pain of invisibility, non-acceptance, loneliness, depression. We have often seen people from the community suffer since their childhood and teenage. This is the hardest part for most of us, as in that period we grow and try to become the person we want to be. Hence, we have to carry the baggage of non-acceptance and social taboos. It becomes really hard. So I'll just, because of that, we see people suffering from community in different versions, in different ways. And LGBTQIA+ people are dealing with all kinds of transphobia, avoidance, ignorance, and suffer from their traumas. So this is a forward, and this is the reason why this kind of workshop was so helpful for the people to come out, for the for the queer people to come out and share their experiences, and they got a platform, they got a space where they could be themselves. Otherwise, they have to always hide themselves. So the narrators in this book present their lived experiences where they had to face discrimination, rejection, isolation, loneliness, and how their experiences forced them to live in the closeted space. Their awareness that they are different and they are not accepted by the society, as they do not conform to societal norms, is reflected in most of these narratives. And here now I would like to read a few lines from one of such write-ups, write-ups called The Words of Concealment. It is written by one dark horse, and the narrator writes, what is invisibility? If we ask, being invisible doesn't always mean that we are not visible to others. Sometimes we isolate ourselves from others. Isolation, it is a very strange word, especially when it is self-imposed. From my childhood, I always knew that I was different. I knew that there was something unique in me, but I never thought that my uniqueness would turn out to be a flaw for others and a dreadful nightmare for me. So as he grew, as he started going to his years, I've been working on movies and all, but we have got one movie coming up now, but I have not still worked on that. But then I've been following this narratives and literature. I would like to say, because social media, I want to bring in some, because there are, I was asked to complete it within 45 minutes, so I did it. One thing I want to tell that, this movement, it has got a great impetus because of this platform, social media. Now we are in a social media platform, and so many other other communities are there who are working, and we are all together in the social media. So that is a very great platform. And then there is, of course, I want to tell about these narratives when I talk about literature, because a student of literature, I read a great deal about of all the narratives that are there in, and then I'm a very avid reader in a group called Ardhaka, and you would be really surprised to see, Mukul, how they have, how they write, the young writers who are coming up, and they write such nuanced writing, with this queer theme. So I was actually thinking of bringing in those, but then due to, I have got a very time constraint, and I cannot take lot many write-up. Therefore, I had to, keep myself constrained to these narratives. Maybe I'll be working on these areas more and more. And this is just the beginning, for us, this is just the beginning. And I feel as researcher, as academician, this is our duty actually to bring awareness among people. And today my students are also there in the group, I've seen my students, my friends are there. So these things are something which, we normally don't speak at home. When the situation is not there, we don't speak, because there is nothing to speak about. But when we get this kind of a platform, and that is why I ask my family, my friends, everybody to be here, so that they get to know something about, these issues, and they can, in a way, they can also be a part of this movement. And we're always within that closeted space. They were in the closet. They won't come out. They won't declare their sexuality. But over time, people have started accepting them, and people have started, expressing their sexuality. They were declaring their sexuality, and that is a positive move, because they have got that kind of a freedom where they can talk about their sexuality. So this kind of an environment has been created gradually. And we being, like we are citizens of this, and we are the future. We have to think about the future of our children, and it is not a kind of a problem for them. It is their identity. It is just their sexual orientation that is different, and which had brought all kinds of change, differences in their mindset, in the mindset of the people. And we always try to, subdue them with our heterosexual mentality. So we have to bring in some kind of, policies, plans, and those things have gradually come up, with the repealation of the Article 377, lot many changes have taken place. But yet, we are yet to go a long distance. And this is just a beginning. This is just the beginning. And we have got a long way to go. Thanks, Neil, for your question.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, we have come time for giving your valuable time and giving such an informative session. I hope we will connect soon in the future. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jia. Thank you, Team Manager. Thank you so much.
Thank you.